Namaste. So we are going to start Bhagavad Gita again today. But as you all know, before we study Bhagavad Gita, we always do these mantras where we are thanking Lord Krishna, thanking the Gita itself, thanking the author who wrote it for us, Rishi Vyas. So let's just, you all have these verses, so let's sing it together. ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायण स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतमृतवर्षिणी भगवतीमष्टादशाध्यायिनी आं त्वाम् अनुसन्धामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी नमो अस्तु ते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे फुल अरविंद आयत पत्र नेत्र येन तव्या भारत तैल पूर्णः प्रज्वलितो ज्ञानमय प्रदीपः प्रपन्न पारिजाताय तोत्र वेत्र एकपानये ज्ञान मुद्राय कृष्णाय गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोगदा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत वसुदेव सुतम देवम कंस चानूर मर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगत गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ जला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्य ग्राहवती कृपेन वहने कर्णेन वेला कुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन आवर्तनी सो तीर्णा खलु पांडवै रन नदी कैवर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरोजमलं गीता अर्थगंधोटकम नानाख्यानक केसरम हरिकथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपदे रह रह पे पिये मानम मुदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसी न श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानंद माधवम् यम ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यस्तवे वेदै सांग पद क्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यम सामगा ध्यानवस्थि तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्यन्तं न विदुषुर असुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. I'm sure you have read Bhagavad Gita many times. And this is not just a reading, it's a studying. So why should we study Bhagavad Gita? And especially so many times. This question comes to our mind, and often we think we have enough knowledge in us. We have gone to schools, colleges, we got degrees, higher degrees, gained enough information. What is so special about Bhagavad Gita that we should study this and keep on studying this again and again and again? To answer this question, let me tell you a story. Because sometimes stories convey the message clearer. An old farmer lived on a farm in the mountains with his young grandson. Each morning, Grandpa was up early sitting at the kitchen table, reading his Bhagavad Gita. His grandson wanted to be just like him and tried to imitate him in every way he could. One day, the grandson asked, Grandpa, I tried to read the Gita just like you, but I don't understand it. And what I do understand, I forget as soon as I close the book. What good does reading the Bhagavad Gita do? The grandfather quietly turned from putting coal in the stove and replied, Take this coal bucket down to the river and bring me back a basket of water. The boy did as he was told, but all the water leaked out before he got back to the house. The grandfather laughed and said, You will have to move a little faster next time. And sent him back to the river with a basket to try again. This time the boy ran faster, but again the basket was empty before he returned home. Out of breath, he told his grandfather that it was impossible to carry water in a basket, and he went to get a bucket. The old man said, I don't want a bucket of water. I want a basket of water. You are not trying hard enough. And he went out the door to watch the boy try again. At this point, the boy knew it was impossible. But he wanted to show his grandfather that even if he ran as fast as he could, the water would leak out before he got back to the house. The boy again dipped the basket into the river and ran hard. But when he reached his grandfather, the basket was empty again. Out of breath, he said, See, Grandpa, it's useless. The old man said, So you think it's useless? Look at the basket. The boy looked at the basket and for the first time realized that the basket was different. It had been transformed from a dirty old coal basket and was now clean, inside and out. He said, Son, that is what happens when you read the Bhagavad Gita. You might not understand or remember everything, but when you read it, you will be changed inside and outside. That is the work of Krishna in our lives. So sometimes we also think that why do we have to read it again and again? Traditionally, we are supposed to do 12 yajnas of Bhagavad Gita. And each yajna is 12 readings. So that means 144 times we are supposed to study Bhagavad Gita. And just like that basket got cleaned, that's how we get clean. Gita gives us wisdom, not just the information. We have gotten plenty of information from this world about every facet of our life. But Gita gives us wisdom. Our life gets transformed with the Gita and with the help of this wisdom. That's how we'll know the purpose of our life. We know the goals of life, but behind all the goals, there's a purpose of life. Purpose is always subtler than the goals. So the study of the Gita takes us to this subtlety of our life. Gita helps our heart. Gita helps our mind. And Gita teaches us how to act also, the action. So how to bring the purity? Gita gives us the vision of oneness. Worldly information gives us a vision of division. Gita gives us the vision of oneness, kindness, compassion. The Bhagavad Gita is called the Song of the Lord. Geet, song. It holds a special place in classic literature and in Hindu philosophy. For centuries, it has served as a manual for daily living to people from all walks of life. And it is a dialogue between a young warrior prince, Arjun, and his revered friend, Lord Krishna. Arjun is considered to be the incarnation of Nar, the average person, and Lord Krishna of Narayan, the supreme indwelling Lord. On the verge of a war with his cousins, Arjun is confused and does not know how to respond to the situation. Lord Krishna instructs him on how to win the battle of life. War being symbolic of the conflict of joys that we all face in everyday situations. With his inspiring words, Lord Krishna is able to lift Arjun out of his despondent state. And ultimately, Arjun becomes a mighty personality with the tremendous inner strength and balance. The Bhagavad Gita is said to contain the essence of all the Upanishads. Self-knowledge, Atam Vidya, being the main theme of Bhagavad Gita as well as all the Upanishads. But the Gita is unique. And Gita has universal appeal because it guides us in the fundamental problem of humankind. And what is that problem? Right choice. In choosing wisely between options, we need to have a clear understanding of the vision of life. That's why I said earlier, Gita gives us the vision. We have to know our identity and our goal. What do we want to achieve in life? Thus, clear understanding is the firm basis for right thinking. And correct thinking leads to right action. This is what Lord Krishna taught Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. And through that dialogue, it remains a lesson for all humanity. He began the teaching with the absolute standpoint of highest truth. That's what we saw, or we will see in the second chapter, Sankhya Yoga, the absolute sense. And then he taught Arjun to also understand the relative perspective of right conduct in society, Karam Yoga, the standpoint of Dharma also. In order to resolve our problems, we need to view life in its totality, relative also, absolute also, not just one dimension of it. We also study the teachings of Gita in regard to Karam Yoga, because we all know life is nothing but a series of experiences. Therefore, we must know what constitutes actions. We don't have a choice of whether or not to act, because we are in a Karam Yoni. But we do have the choice of selecting which actions to perform and with what attitude. Gita also teaches value system. What are the virtues that lead us to liberation? And what are the negative qualities that strengthen our bondage to the world? So in other words, what really keeps us where we are or even takes us lower than where we are, and what kind of virtues will help us elevate? Often we understand the significance of values, but these values are not always lived because it requires immense discipline on our part. When our thoughts are different than our actions, we develop a so-called split personality, and we find ourselves constantly agitated. Hence, the importance of learning the value of these values is taught by Lord Krishna. The person who has transformed himself After having understood all the above, that means the problem of life, the goal of life, how one should live in the world wisely, according to Lord Krishna, he is a man of wisdom. Our life is nothing but a transaction between the world and ourselves, and in the form of perception and response. Once we are born, we cannot escape it. The world is such that we have to respond. But how we respond is what matters. It is only when we have a vision of the totality of life that we can make right decision, right choices, even amongst these complex problems that confront us in our life. That is the knowledge that Lord Krishna imparted to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. For our benefit, it was set in a book form by Rishi Ved Vyas. 701 verses of Bhagavad Gita. That's why Bhagavad Gita is called the manual for living, that offers a complete philosophy of life. Each verse is guiding us to a new understanding of ourselves. We got to understand the word life also. Life is a series of experiences. And every moment we are required to make choice. And most of us are not certain what is the right choice. And that's where the conflict comes. To do or not to do. Sometimes we decide on an action, but when it comes time to carry it out, we begin to doubt. This inner conflict of how to make the right choice in every situation is common to all of us. And in order to resolve it, we need to be able to think clearly. For those who have clarity of thought, life is simple and life is uncomplicated. The most important thing is to learn the art of right thinking. This is what Gita teaches us, the art of right thinking. Knowing how to think is more important than knowing what to think. We should also have a vision of life in its totality, as I said earlier. And in the light of that vision, all problems can be resolved easily. Whatever challenge we meet in the life, it could be illness, it could be emotional trauma, or a financial hardship. Our response will vary according to our level of inner maturity and our vision of life. So when we study Bhagavad Gita, it's not that traumas don't come or the problems don't arise in life, but we have a maturity to look at the problems, and with the right attitude, we can handle the problems. That's what Gita gives us. Take illness, for instance. One who has faith and inner maturity tends to be more accepting and will consider the illness as a temporary situation and suffer much less. While a person who lacks faith and who has a narrower view of life will be more fearful, suffer greatly, at only the hint of a disease also. Once we know the art of clear and logical thinking, it becomes easier to deal with the various situations that we encounter in life. While studying the Gita verses, do not just focus on what Lord Krishna is saying, but also be aware of how he presents the teachings. That's why just have a connection, deep connection with the Lord Krishna. That's the reason we recite those mantras, so that our mind is fully focused on what we are doing instead of scattered mind, which is going every which way. Have a link between your inner personality with the Lord Krishna. Whether his feet, or whether his eyes, or whether his mouth, or whether his hand, whatever is dear to you, keep that focus always in your mind. Then you will understand it. And that's why I said, be aware of how he presents the situations and his teachings for that particular situation. For the significance of what is said is revealed by the very way in which it is presented. And we'll see that verses unfold, and we will see how Lord Krishna removes Arjun's ignorance. While he's removing Arjun's ignorance, if we stay connected with the Lord, our ignorance will be removed too. Ultimately, we study this to remove our ignorance. And this ignorance is called avidya. Avidya. We have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten the absolute nature. We have forgotten the vision of oneness. We've been dividing ourselves from others. Me and mine has become so strong. Me versus them has become so strong. So we'll see that if we study this properly, our ignorance will be removed just like Arjun's did. And by the removal of the ignorance, with the proper wisdom and discernment, just like Arjun very confidently confronted the very difficult situation where he had to fight against his grandfather, his own teacher, with his close relative, closest of the relatives he had to fight with. He had to shoot the arrows on them. But with a proper confidence, with a clearer picture, he could do his duty better. And this is what we learn from Bhagavad Gita. So this time around, when we study this, I would like you to keep this part in your mind. That this is not just another book we are reading. Bhagavad Gita is really teaching us how to live our life and then ultimately attain that purpose of life. Because sometimes we don't even know what our purpose of life is. We'll find the purpose of life with this wisdom. We'll have our heart clean. We'll have our mind pure. Because these three things are needed to live a life properly, fruitfully. So remember these three main factors which we're going to be learning. How to make our mind and heart pure. How to bring wisdom inside our intellect, buddhi, and how to do the actions efficiently. All three of them. And as you all know, Bhagavad Gita is written in Sanskrit, in shlok form. There are three forms of writing actually. If you look at our scriptures, Vedic scriptures, some of them are called Shastra. Shastra. Then there are some which is called Stotra. And the third one is called Sutra. Yesterday we were studying Yoga Sutras. Sutras. Sutras are the form of writing where technique to reach that particular state. That's a sutra. So just like a Yoga Sutras, Yogaschit Vritti Nirodha, this is the goal also, definition of yoga also. Then later on, Rishi Patanjali tells us the techniques, how to reach there. Naraji also the same thing. He tells us what the bhakti is, what love for God is, then how to develop that love for God. So, sutra form of writing is the technique to reach that particular state. And what is a stotra? Stotra is from heart. In a stotra, we express our heartful longing, deep love, where we worship an idol. We relate with the divine through that idol. Like a Hanuman Chalisa, that's a stotra. All we are doing is just singing those words and we are connecting with our worshipful idol. And then Shastras are, all the Upanishads are Shastra. Shastra says a intellectual understanding of the goal of life. By the wise people, it's said that Bhagavad Gita has all of these three, even though writing style is a shlok, but it has the significance of the sutra also, the techniques, how to reach there. We see the singing of the love in Arjun's heart for Lord Krishna when he sees that Vishwarup, Lord Krishna. And at the end, we see those stotra coming out of Sanjay's mouth also. Singing the glories, showing the love for Lord. And then, of course, it's a Shastra because a lot of intellectual understanding, a lot of wisdom is given in this scripture. So it has all these things. It's a rich scripture. That's why, even though it was written more than 5,000 years ago, but when we study this, when we dissect each and every word of it, we think it was written in our age. It's old, but not old-fashioned. Each and every word, it still pertains to our life. It gives us enough wisdom to solve today's, even though we call it a modern age, problems also. So next week I am going to, because there are some students who don't know that this Bhagavad Gita is only a part of an epic which is called Mahabharata. Mahabharata has 100,000 verses. This Bhagavad Gita is just a part of those 100,000 verses. So in a summary form, I am going to go through the Mahabharata story for the benefit of those students who don't know the story of Mahabharata. Because some of the names, they do come in Bhagavad Gita. And sometimes these names, we just get lost in those names. So it's good to know those also. So next week we'll touch upon that. And after that, we will start from chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. See, Mahabharata has 18 parts. One of the 18 parts has Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita is divided into 18 chapters too. 18 is a very significant number for this scripture. 18. Okay, as we go along, we'll talk about it more and more. But 18 chapters, and it's a yogic scripture. It's called a Yoga Shastra. That's what Rishi Vyas called it. Mahabharata is an epic. In epic, there's a yogic scripture. Yogic scripture which really gives us the insight into our life, how to solve the problems, how to live this life, how to reach the ultimate goal also while living here. Okay, so if somebody has a question, we can talk about it now and have a little dialogue. And so how to bring the purity? Gita gives us the vision of oneness. No question?
No.
Nobody has a question?
Harshji, this is Raj.
Yes, Raj.
One question. In the beginning, you mentioned that Arjun is Narad's
Arjun is a Nar.
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 Okay.
You know, there is in a Satyuga, there is a God incarnated in the form of Narayan. And then there was a Nar also, Nar Narayan. You must have heard that name. It is a
Yes.
incarnation of God, Nar Narayan. So two people. And that Nar is in Dwapar Yoga came as Arjun. And Narayan, of course, Lord Krishna. Okay. So that's why I said Arjun is considered to be the incarnation of Nar again. Okay. So it's like he got confused, just like we do. He got hysterical actually in the middle of the situation, which was he was looking forward to that war, but when he was in the middle of it, at that point he became very hysterical. Okay, so Nar, so he's representing an average man. So sometimes we think that no, Arjun could have a Vishavrup Darshan, Lord's vision. Hey, Lord Krishna says, we also can have that, but we got to cultivate those qualities. We got to have that kind of a urgency of meeting God. Okay, so Raj, is that clear?
Harshji, so Nar was not a Devta, Nar was like an average man.
Yeah, Nar was like when he came as a avatar, Nar Narayan, they both did a lot of tapasya. Lot of tapasya in Satyug at that time. So now he came back again as a prince to play the role of an average person. That when we do the duty, we can get confused sometimes and we need the direction.
So how did Narayan pick Nar to do the tapasya in Satyug?
In Bhagavad Puran, the story comes that both of them just sat there and did the tapasya. There is not much written about it,
I see.
what really happened, but God came with the Nar and both of them did tapasya for a long time. Okay, so there's nothing else really mentioned about Nar Narayan incarnation. Okay, that is one of the incarnation, avatar.
Yes.
At the 24 avatar, 24 avatars, Nar Narayan is one of them.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Arjun was that Nar, and Lord Krishna is the Narayan. Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. So maybe we can just have a bhajan then, Manny.
I'll talk. I'll ask a question.
Oh, sure, Urmil. Definitely.
Uh, I get it. Uh, to remove ignorance, Arjun is short. He systematically helps him to get into the grips of getting over this confusion.
Yes.
Then you said the three things he wants you to do is to have your mind and heart pure, how to bring wisdom in your intellect, and do the actions efficiently. Just
Yeah.
I get it, but let's elaborate on this a little bit.
Okay, efficiency in action, he talks about in the part of the Karma Yoga. Efficiency
Yes.
comes when we are not fixated on the fruit of our actions. Because otherwise, part of our efficiency is leaking in the thinking about what will I get? I'm doing this, what will I get? So he tells us very clearly, do not focus on the fruit when you are doing the action. That's why he said, Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Learn how to do your actions skillfully as a yogi. That means a karma yogi. Okay. So this is what we learn in Bhagavad Gita. And then mind and heart pure. When he talks about the Dev, Asur, Sampad, Vibhag Yoga, he says, do not have those demonic qualities. Cultivate the Devic qualities. Right? I mean, in that chapter, in several chapters, he talk about. Okay. So that's our mind and heart pure. We got to, so in this world, when we live, we got to do our best, whatever situation we are put into.
I have a hard time accepting the word qualities for demonic
because you
demonic
think
attributes or demonic habits, anything, but I cannot connect qualities with demonic.
okay,
That
see,
I've been always bothered with
yeah.
that.
See, that is how you interpret the language.
Yeah.
You think quality has to be good.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, a person who is highly rajasic, very active, versus a person who is sattvic. So for a rajasic person, it's a quality to stay very active, to become very competitive. It's a quality for them. On the other hand, for a sattvic person, no competition. We are one. I'm gonna just do my best. Okay. So quality word is just English. In English, when we translate gun, it just gives a little different kind of a color to it. So it's just
it is always I've been uncomfortable with that word throughout.
Maybe we should use the word characteristics.
That's okay. Yeah, if
Might
that
be a better word, yeah.
Yeah, if that suits you, these are again the words. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Because Lord Krishna uses the word Dev, Asur, Sampad. Sampad means the wealth. Okay. So even the Asur thinks it's my wealth. That I can crush others. But a Devata thinks that is not good.
Yeah.
But he uses the word Sampad, Vibhag Yoga. So what is a Sampad? What is a wealth for the Asurs? And what is the wealth for the Devatas? So dig deeper into the Sanskrit words, then it just really gives you a better idea. Okay.
Yeah. And then the second
the
one,
thing which I said, so it's just like a make sure mind and heart pure. It's like a goodness in you. And then efficiency in action and wisdom. Wisdom, where does the wisdom come from? When we have the ultimate goal in our life. When he talks about Kshetra and Kshatragya Vibhag Yoga, he talks about what is this field and who is the knower of the field and how are you going to know the knower of the field? Without wisdom, you cannot. So this is like a summary in our terminology in the outset of Bhagavad Gita. And these three things we need in order to have a better life, successful life. All three. See, good heart, efficiency, and wise. See, for example, Ravan was efficient. Ravan had knowledge also. But Ravan was not good at heart. And a person thinks, oh, I am very good-hearted. I have knowledge also, but doesn't want to work. Will not be successful in life. And a person says, no, I have a good heart and I'm going to work efficiently, but there's no knowledge. Wisdom is not there. That's not successful either. So you need all three. All three. Okay. So this is what I see from Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna is telling us, that develop all three avenues. Okay. So, yeah, do ask these kind of questions because that's how I will elaborate. Because I'll see that if there is a quest to learn more, then sure I will open it up for you according to as much as I know. Okay. So anybody else? So next week it's going to be a Mahabharata story, and we may be able to start with verse number 1 also. So let me do the Shanti part, and then Mani will sing the bhajan. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om.